For those who practice mindfulness or vipassana and haven't seen the result. First of all, the mind doesn't have good quality. The concentration is not the right concentration. I found this out when I was a layperson. At that time I was practicing as instructed by the master, Luang Pu Dun. When he confirmed that I was doing it right, I went out to the other temples to observe other practitioners. I found out that when not having the right concentration, we can't do vipassana. Look at my monks. Their minds are different from yours. By the way, now they are trying too much. Those who are ordained here wouldn't do vipassana or insight meditation until being 2 months. First, they need to establish the foundation of the right concentration. This requirement comes from my lesson from seeing those practitioners from the other places. There are many kinds of wrong concentration. One of those is to fully focus until the minds become stable. Another one of those is to see other things through the third eye, seeing gods, angels, heaven realms, and hell. Some of them sit still without any focus. Some of them sit still with half sleep, half awake. Not the right concentration. When I studied with Luang Pu Dun, it only took a little bit amount of time that the master has confirmed my practice. Why did I do to get the quick result? I had been doing lots of meditation. I was able to categorize different types of concentrations. There are 2 types of concentrations: right concentration and wrong concentration. Wrong concentration is the one that most people do or have. Some of them do a concentration meditation with stress. The result of that is stress with even stress on the body. Pretty intense. Sometimes it hurts, resulting in a stiff neck and back, forcing themselves. Some other people do it without being mindful enough, going off and see other things. Don't you see it's too much one side or the other? The concentration is not correct. When I was a child, I was doing the wrong concentration also. When I was doing it, there was a bright light, and I followed that bright light to see other things. One day I realized that there was no real benefit from it. Later, I was trying to feel the body pretty often, so that the mind doesn't see the bright light and go off to see other things. When getting unconscious, I had to breathe a little harder to wake myself up to be aware of myself. With the full consciousness, I wanted more consciousness to be with me at all time, so I did meditate with a different method. Breathing heavily and heavily to get the full alert. Then I realized that this is not the right concentration because I wasn't in peace or happy. Eventually, the mind was on the right track. I was aware of breathing. By the way, my main meditation method is breathing meditation. In the beginning, I was doing a short prayer like Buddha. When the mind is getting calmer, the prayer goes away, and just breathing is all that remains. When the mind is getting calmer, the breathing goes away, and just bright light is all that remains. From breathing to light. The mind was peaceful for a moment. I knew that the mind was going off with the light. With that awareness, the mind came back with concentration observing the phenomena. I knew that was good because it felt natural. The mind was light, soft, and active. Opposite of being heavy, intense, stressful, dumb, and steady. However, I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how to benefit from this right concentration. When I first studied with Luang Pu Dun, he told me to observe the minds. When I started, I didn't know about minds. I didn't know where the minds were. I didn't know what to observe. I didn't know how to observe it, so I knew nothing about the minds. Then I did concentration meditation. When the mind is calm, it becomes wise. I realized that minds have to be within this physical body. So I thought from now on I will only observe what inside this body. This is an important principle. When you don't know what to do, do a concentration meditation first. For me, I do breathing meditation. When the mind is calm, then we can decide what to do next. Even this method can be used with world problems. When being aware within the body, one day we will see the minds. This is a really important concept. When knowing outside the body, we will be deluded with the outside world. The chance of achieving enlightenment is pretty rare because it is not self-awareness. In Sanskrit is opan-ego. Therefore I was being mindful of the body often, but still I couldn't see the minds. Is a thought a mind? I questioned. Then I thought in a pray. The Buddha, who is purified, has unlimited generosity and compassion. When knowing that thought, an observing mind arises immediately. Therefore, an observing mind and a thought are the opposite of each other, just like a coin that having two sides. Therefore, when we know the minds that think, observing minds arise automatically. When we know, thought is no longer present. They are the opposite. When knowing, it's not thinking. When thinking, it's not knowing. When knowing that mind that thinks, an observing mind arises. Luang Pu Su Wat is one of Luang Pu Mon's students. He told me that Luang Pu Mon taught him that if you can observe the minds, do it. If you cannot observe the minds, observe the body. If you cannot observe the body, do some concentration meditation. Luang Pu Dun, my master, taught that the enlightened one's 84,000 Dharma teachings all come from the mind. Therefore, being able to observe the minds is to achieve the Dharma. Not being able to observe the minds is to lose the Dharma. As a result, observe your own minds whenever you are able to observe them. How? Know as the way they are. The mind is happy, know that the mind is happy. The happiness has disappeared from the mind, know that it has disappeared. The mind is unhappy or negative, know that the mind is unhappy or negative. The negativity has disappeared from the mind, know that it has disappeared. The mind is greedy or wanting, know that the mind is greedy or wanting. The mind is not greedy nor wanting, know that the mind is not greedy nor wanting. The mind is angry, know that the mind is angry. The mind is not angry, know that the mind is not angry. The mind is deluded, know that the mind is deluded. The mind is not deluded, meaning it is concentrating or mindful, know that the mind is not deluded. Even the mind is wandering off or depressed or upset, let's know that. Then the minds will teach us the Dharma. They will teach us that happiness is temporary. Unhappiness is temporary, as well as greed, anger, and delusion. Even the mind itself is temporary. When it arises through the eyes, it falls away. When it arises through the ears, it falls away. When it arises through the nose, the tongue, the body, and the emotion, it falls away. It falls away where it arises. When I started practicing, I thought the mind is at my chest, because every time the emotion occurs like greed, desire, and anger, it felt like they came from the chest. One day I asked my master, Luang Pu Dun, where is the mind within the body? I was expecting the answer to be that the mind is at the chest. Master Bua taught that the Dharma is from the chest. He didn't say that the mind is at the chest, so I totally misinterpreted it. Anyway, I asked Luang Pu Dun, where is the mind? He said the mind is not anywhere. Where the mind arises is where the mind falls away. When it arises through the eyes, it falls away as well as the other sensual organs. Therefore, when we observe our mind, do not pay attention to a specific part of the body like at the forehead, the chest, or the belly. While developing wisdom, know where it feels because the mind is the one that feels. The feeling and the mind arise together, so know where it feels. For instance, when you're happy, know that you're happy. Do not find out where the happy feeling is or where it's coming from. Do you know when you're happy? When you're happy, just know that you're happy. Then you will realize that happiness is temporary. It arises and falls away. Same thing with unhappiness or sadness. When you're unhappy, just know that you're unhappy. Don't find out where it's coming from. Then the unhappy feeling will fall away after it arises. The same thing with greed, anger, and delusion, just know it. You will see that where it arises is where it falls away. Then you will realize something arises, that thing falls away. When wisdom is strengthened enough, the mind knows that anything has a beginning, has an end. When you see something arises, falls away, you will achieve Sotapanna, first partial enlightenment or stream enterer. The ability to see that is the result of mental observation. Happiness arises, then falls away. Unhappiness arises, then falls away. Wholesome arises, then falls away. Greed, anger, and delusion arise, then also fall away. Everything arises, falls away. Observe one at a time. The one that presents itself in presence. It will show itself that it arises and falls away. At some point, the mind will conclude by itself, gaining the overall knowledge that anything arises, falls away. It realizes that we are not permanent self. Instead, the mind sees that there are only mental and physical matters, including feelings, thoughts, and emotions that stay temporarily then disappear. In order for the mind to accept the truth that anything arises, falls away, we need to practice mindfulness to observe that the mind arises and falls away often. Over and over. Keep learning the things that arise and fall away. One day we will be freed from the things that arise and fall away. That state is nirvana. Nirvana is the opposite of the world. Nirvana does not arise or fall away. It will see that by itself when the mind runs out of desire. It will see that once. Keep observing it. It will realize happiness arises and falls away as well as unhappiness. Once realized this, when happiness comes, the mind will not be so satisfied because it knows that it is temporary. It will not try to maintain that happiness to last forever. It knows that happiness arises and falls away. Similarly, when encountering unhappiness, the mind will not hate it because it knows that it arises and falls away. Therefore, when seeing happiness and unhappiness often, eventually the mind will become neutral because of wisdom. It is not neutral because of awareness or concentration. There are several ways for the mind to become neutral. For example, with awareness, if we are aware of satisfactory and unsatisfactory in our mind, it becomes neutral, but those satisfied and unsatisfied emotions will keep occurring. With concentration meditation, the mind will contain joy and happiness, but when being aware of that, the feeling of joy will decrease and finally becomes neutral. That's not good enough. However, when we develop wisdom until it's enough, we see that happiness and unhappiness are equal. They both arise and fall away as well as good and evil. So when it comes happiness, the mind is not deluded to it. When there's no happiness, the mind has no desire to make it happen. On the other hand, when it comes unhappiness, it is not it. When unhappiness has not yet come, the mind's not worried. Therefore, keep observing. By just knowing both happy and unhappy feelings, the mind can become neutral. Similarly, you can also do the pair of good and evil, like when you like or don't like the feeling when they arise. For example, when the mind's going crazy and you don't like it, be aware. Then it knows that crazy minds are temporary. Calm minds are also temporary. Learn the truth of them until you realize that anything in a pair is equal to each other. As a pair, happy and unhappy are equal. As a pair, good and evil are equal. Angry minds and not angry minds are equal. Greedy minds and not greedy minds are equal, as well as crazy minds and minds with concentration. It feels that they are equal. Then it will not struggle. Instead, it just knows it and it ends right there. Just know it seems like a simple term and easy to do. In fact, it is very hard for a person to just know it. It requires the practice until one has achieved so-called even mindfulness wisdom. Happy, unhappy, good, and evil are all formations. Therefore, we have to keep learning the truth. The truth that occurs rapidly is the truth of the minds. Happy, unhappy, good and evil arises and falls away rapidly. There's also the truth of the body, but it occurs slowly. For example, if we want to see that the body is getting old at the moment, it is hard. Even we observe it all day long, you still don't see that it is getting old. However, the minds change rapidly. The masters taught that if we want to take a practice shortcut, just be aware of the minds. However, some people are unable to observe the minds. It doesn't feel right for them. Observing the body is better than not doing anything. Master Mon taught that observe the minds if you can. If you cannot observe the minds, observe the body. If you cannot observe the body, get the mind calm by doing concentration meditation. This is the principle. Observe the mind to see the three characteristics of it. Observe the body to see the three characteristics of it. See the truth that the minds are impermanent. They arise then fall away. Also, all types of feelings arise and fall away. Alternatively, you can see that they are not under our control. We can't order happy feelings to arise. Similarly, we can't stop the unhappy feelings from arising. We can't order the mind to be wholesome at all times. We can't keep the mind from anger, greed, and delusion. Seeing the truth this way is called seeing anatta or uncontrollable characteristics. See the truth like this. Do not think or analyze about the truth. As long as it involves thinking, one will never able to see the truth. It's not vipassana. Vipassana consists of two words. Vi means clearly. Passana means to see. So vipassana means insight, seeing the truth of the body and the mind in the three characteristics. Therefore, not seeing the three characteristics is not vipassana. One must really see it or feel it instead of thinking. So if we just sit down and think that this body is suffering, temporary, and non-self or uncontrollable, it's wrong. That's just a thought. A thought doesn't have a defined state, but mental and physical matters have a defined state. So seeing mental and physical matters is seeing the truth. A couple of months ago there were a couple of monks from a place where they're a master. The master teaches them to just think without doing any form of concentration meditation. They said that the master told them to just think about the three characteristics that the body and the mind are impermanent, suffering, and uncontrollable. I told them that you can't do that because the mind would be too wandering. However, the master was able to do it. The master is an exception because the master has done lots of concentration meditation, gaining meditative state from his previous lives. When the master thinks about the body and mind, he sees the truth instead of thinking. However, his students haven't achieved the meditative state. When they think about the three characteristics of the body, the mind wanders off or loses focus. Or even if they can focus, the concentration they have might not be the right concentration. Therefore the other masters brought that up to him not to teach students to just think about the truth. Therefore vipassana is not about thinking, instead, it's about feeling. Do you know anger? Do you have to think that you're angry? Feel it. Feel your own feelings so that later on you will see that all types of minds arise and fall away. The feeling that arises with the mind falls away with the mind. For instance, feeling happy arises with a happy mind, as well as an unhappy feeling. Therefore, a mental state arises with the mind and falls away with the mind about the same time. They both share the same emotion. Therefore, we can't observe the mind directly. We have to observe mental states arising with the mind. Like fuel gas itself doesn't smell nor shows any color. When there's a leak, It's extremely dangerous and can kill anyone without knowing about it. Therefore, fuel gas producers have to put the smell so that when it's noticeable when there's a gas leak. Same thing with the mind doesn't contain shape. It exists but is hard to see. Therefore we have to observe mental states or formation within the mind, so we know that a specific type of mind arises and falls away. So we observe our mind through mental states such as feelings. Happy feeling arises with the mind as well as unhappy, good, and evil. Happy mind and unhappy mind are different instances. Angry mind and a mind which is not angry are different instances. We observe a mental state which is like a fuel gas smell, which is not the gas. Therefore, when referring to mind observation, it is to observe mental states, not the direct minds. Also, there are another way to observe the minds. The method is to observe the minds through the senses. The mind that sees and the mind that listens are different instances. The mind that thinks is another instance. Don't you see they are different? The mind that arises through the eyes falls away. The mind that arises through the ears falls away, as well as the other senses. This method is more difficult because it falls into a higher category of practice. If your 5 strengths are still weak, just observe the minds through feelings or mental states. It's easier. Especially feelings because every mind instance has a feeling. Memory or perception also occurs in every mind instance, but it is so hard to observe those. Don't do it yet. Formation or thoughts occurs in every mind instance. Therefore, observe things that occur often and easy to see. For instance, if you're ill-tempered, observe the anger that rises and falls away. It falls away when you're not angry. Observe them over and over. Eventually, you realize that the mind that is angry is temporary as well as the one that's not. Our goal is not to eliminate anger, but to realize that angry minds arise and fall away, as well as the ones that are not angry. For those of you that are greedy, observe that greedy minds arise and fall away. Also, minds without greed arise and fall away. They occur alternatively. Soon you'll see that they just simply arise and fall away as normal. Keep learning about the minds. Don't think. You need to see it. To see it you need to have the right concentration. When it has the right concentration, the mind stops reacting to what arises and falls away. Instead, it simply observes it. Nowadays, there are lots of those who react. Even on TV, the audience sings at the same time as the singers. What's the point of buying the ticket to see a concert while you can sing by yourself? They even dance with the music as well. They all react. Can't simply just watch. That's why only a few practice the mindfulness or the Dharma. If I watch a TV series, I am an observer for real. The actress cries, but no way I am not going to get emotional. I see that the inside she's laughing. It can't fool me anymore because I am a real observer which sees it clearly. Have you seen air hostess from some of those airlines? They play smile when greeting the passengers. If we become an observer, we even see things clearly in real life. People who smile at us don't really smile. We see the truth. If we observe things that arise and fall away often over and over, we finally see the truth. Don't lie to yourself. Seeing over and over until you realize that anything that arises falls away. There's nothing that we can control. Practice a lot. Don't just think. Vipassana is to see. To see it we need to be an observer. Just when we watch a movie, we are not an actor. When we see a concert, we don't sing and dance. When we watch a soccer game, we don't play soccer. Just be an observer. Observe but relax. Don't change yourself from being normal. It's not good if the mind or the body is stressful. Today the teaching is so long to get you guys the overall theory of practice. This morning was all about concentration meditation. When we know when the mind thinks or when the mind focuses on the subject of meditation, the mind becomes an observer. Next step, we are able to see the body and the mind working. If you are able to see the mind, keep observing it. If you can't see the mind, observe the body. If you can't do both, just do some meditation exercise. Start over. When observe the mind, don't try to observe it directly, instead observe it through feelings. We'll see them arise and fall away over and over. Next, we will see that a mind with greed arises and falls away as well as a mind with anger and delusion.